Fun especially for this family, since they're stepping out in their 1960 Chevy Nomad wagon.
Picture a 1955 Chevy station wagon. You're probably seeing something practical and boxy right now, the kind of thing your grandparents hauled groceries and kids around in. But Chevrolet built a wagon that year that was so low and so sleek and so downright pretty that people said it was the best-looking wagon Detroit ever made. Looking at it now, I still think they were right. Strange part is almost nobody bought it. 3 years, tiny numbers, then it just disappeared. Before I get into any of this, I need to clear something up, because the internet gets this wrong constantly, and it drives me nuts. This car did not have wood grain paneling on it. None. Not real wood, not fake wood, nothing. If somebody called the Nomad a wood grain wagon, they're confusing it with a completely different car. What the Nomad actually had going on was way cooler than fake wood could ever be. To understand how this car happened, you have to go back to January 26, 1954, Waldorf Astoria Hotel, New York City. GM Motorama. If you're not familiar, basically General Motors would rent out fancy venues, wheel out wild concept cars on turntables, and let the public walk around drooling over stuff that might never get built. Half car show, half marketing stunt, and people ate it up every year. That year, one of the stars was this two-door wagon thing wearing the front end of the brand new Corvette. Fiberglass body, no real engine, just a pretty shell on a turntable. And the crowd could not get enough of it. Guy most often credited with that roofline is a designer named Carl Renner, working under Harley Earl, GM's legendary styling boss. Now the exact paper trail of who drew what is fuzzy going back this far, and it gets argued about in the collector community all the time. But most sources put the roof on Renner and the green light on Earl. Earl apparently loved this thing so much, he just said, "Build it, we're doing this." Catch was it couldn't ride on the Corvette chassis. Too small, too expensive for any kind of volume. So they adapted the look onto the regular full-size Chevy frame instead. Same 115-inch wheelbase underneath every Bel Air. That decision sounds boring, but it matters because it's the exact reason a Pontiac version of this car was able to exist. Coming back to that, so what separated a Nomad from a regular Bel Air wagon with the back restyled? From the cowl forward, honestly not much. Same face as every other 55 Chevy, but from the cowl back, it shared almost nothing with anything else, and that back half is where everything was happening. Doors. Frameless hardtop style glass. Roll the window down, and there's no metal frame around it. No other Tri-5 wagon had that. Only true hardtop wagon in the whole lineup. Roof had 9 grooved ribs across the top that Nomad guys call strakes. And here's a detail most people never see because you have to actually get inside the car. Chevy ran little chrome strips inside the headliner to mirror those strakes on the interior. That kind of attention to detail surprises me for a 50s production car. Tailgate sloped back at a sharp angle with 7 vertical chrome bars that collectors started calling the bananas, because they kind of look like bananas. B-pillars leaned forward instead of standing straight up. Rear windows wrapped all the way around the corners. Rear wheel openings cut fully round just like a Corvette. No wood, anywhere. Glass, chrome, and one of the cleanest rooflines of the decade. Timing was perfect mechanically too, because 55 was the year Chevy finally got a real V8. New 265 cubic inch small block, tick the power pack box, and you got a 4-barrel carb with dual exhaust bumping it to 180 horsepower. I've talked about the small block on this channel before, and every time I come back to it, I'm struck by how much that one engine changed Chevy as a brand. So on paper, this car had everything. Sports car face, wagon usefulness, fresh V8 in the middle. Hard to screw that up, right? First year, the Nomad did okay. Chevrolet moved 86 of them in 55, which, for a weird pricey 2-door wagon that no customer ever walked into a dealership and asked for, that's honestly not bad. Pontiac thing I mentioned earlier. Pontiac sold their own version called the Safari. Same roof, same idea, different trim, different badge. So if your uncle has been swearing for 30 years he knew a guy with a Pontiac Nomad, he's not confused. He's remembering a Safari. Between the two of them, GM had the 2 best-looking wagons on any American lot that year. And I don't think that's debatable. The 55 is the cleanest of the 3 years, if you ask me. Before they started piling on chrome in 56, and even more in 57. First-year car in the right two-tone color combination is just about perfect. One of my favorite designs of the whole era. Here's where the story turns, and it comes down to two problems Chevy never solved. Money first. V8 Nomad stickered at $2,571. To understand how crazy that was, a Bel Air convertible cost about $265 less. The station wagon was more expensive than the drop top, completely backwards from how anyone thinks about car pricing, and it was backwards in '55 too. The Nomad was actually the most expensive car Chevrolet had ever put on sale up to that point. A wagon. Most expensive Chevy ever. All that gorgeous sheet metal behind the cowl required unique tooling that nothing else shared, and unique tooling costs money, whether the result is pretty or not. Second problem was simpler, and there was no fix for it. 2 doors. Put yourself in a showroom in 1955 for a second. 3 kids, weeks worth of groceries, and you're looking at a 2-door wagon priced above the convertible parked 10 feet away. Who is this for? People who could afford it wanted something sporty, not a wagon. People who needed a wagon took one look at 2 doors and that price and walked over to the 4-door. Nomad fell right through a crack in the market nobody at Chevy saw coming. Or maybe Earl saw it coming and didn't care because he wanted his pretty wagon built. I don't know. Watch the sales numbers because they tell the whole story. 83.86 in 55. Down to 78.86 in 56. Down again to 61.03 in 57. Every single year. And I specifically want to mention that 56 number because I've seen people tell this story online, like the car jumped from 55 straight to 57 as if 1956 never happened. It did. Built all 3 years. Just bled sales the entire time. By 57, Ed Cole had pushed more cost into the Chevy line, completely new body was coming for 58, and the 2-door Nomad didn't have a place at the table anymore. Being beautiful doesn't pay for assembly line tooling. Never has. For 58, Chevy did something that probably annoyed everyone who loved the original. Kept the name, stuck it on a plain 4-door wagon. Same badge, none of the magic. No frameless doors, no wraparound glass, no bananas. Just a normal wagon wearing a famous name because marketing didn't want to let it die. Sat around like that until the end of 61, then disappeared. Name popped up a few more times. 2-door Chevelle wagon in 64 and 65. Base Chevelle wagon 68 through 72. Even a Vega version for 1 year that I completely forgot existed until I started pulling records for this video. None of those were the car from the Waldorf. Not remotely. Here's the twist though. The exact things that killed the Nomad on the showroom floor are the exact things that turned it into a legend. Too expensive, too impractical, too pretty for its own good. That's the entire collector sales pitch in 2026. Clean correct 55 through 57. Nomad runs 25 to 42 grand depending on condition. And if there's a rare fuel-injected engine under the hood, slap another 50% on top. The wagon dealers couldn't give away is now the undisputed king of the Tri-5 world. One more time because the internet will not let this go. There is no wood on this car. Not on the 55, not on the 56, not on the 57. If somebody tries to sell you a wood grain Nomad from these years, they're thinking of a completely different wagon, and you should walk away from that deal. That's the rise and fall of the original Chevrolet Nomad. Flopped at the dealership, won in the history books. Which is a pretty rare thing for any car to pull off. Let me know in the comments which year is your pick, 55, 56, or 57. And if any of you rode in one back in the day or knew somebody who had one, I'd genuinely love to hear about it, because I feel like these cars have stories attached to them nobody is telling anymore. Also curious whether you'd pick the Chevy or the Pontiac Safari if you had the choice. Otherwise though, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. And I will see you all in the next one, enthusiasts.